This is Billy Hope, a world champion, a proud father, a loving husband, and a man moments away from losing everything. He had the belt, the glory, the mansion, and the world at his feet. But life doesn't care about your titles. And in the blink of an eye, everything Billy Hope built came crashing down. This is a story about pain, heartbreak, and redemption. A fighter who lost everything and still found a way to fight back. Billy Hope was the definition of a brawler. In the ring, he wasn't technical or fancy. He'd take 5 punches to land one, bleed just to taste victory. And fans loved it. He was undefeated, the light heavyweight champion of the world. Feared by his opponents, worshipped by his fans, and guided by the one person who knew him better than anyone, his wife, Maureen. Maureen wasn't just his partner. She was his foundation. They grew up in the same group home, survived the same tough streets, and together they climbed to the top. She handled his contracts, managed his health, protected him from himself. While Billy threw punches, Maureen was the real fighter behind the scenes. They had a daughter, Layla, who was their whole world. They had money, respect, a beautiful home. It looked perfect from the outside. But the truth? Billy was always one wrong move away from chaos. And then one night, that move came. A press event. A trash-talking rival. Pride clashed. Words were exchanged. Tempers exploded. And just like that, a gunshot rang out. Maureen was hit. Right there, beside Billy. 1 second she was holding his hand. The next, she was bleeding in his arms. She was gone. No more advice. No more calm voice. No more balance. Billy Hope, the world champion, was suddenly a widower, a broken man with a broken heart. What followed was a downward spiral. Billy couldn't cope. He turned to alcohol, got into fights, crashed his car, lost control. And then came the worst part. He lost custody of his daughter. Layla was taken away by child services. Billy, the proud father, couldn't even be near her. No fights, no family, no peace. The champion? Gone. The world watched him fall, and nobody reached out a hand. But this isn't where the story ends. Because real fighters don't stay down. They rise, even if it takes everything. And Billy knew, if he wanted to be a father again, if he wanted to honor Maureen's memory, he had to start from scratch. With nowhere to go, Billy walked into a small, worn-down gym. It wasn't flashy. It didn't have cameras or fancy trainers. But it had Tick Wills, a former boxer turned trainer. Blind, quiet, strict, but full of wisdom. Tick didn't care about fame. He cared about heart, and Billy had heart. Buried deep under all the pain and anger, there was still a fighter inside. Billy begged Tick to train him, not for money, not for belts, but for Layla. He wanted to fight again, not for glory, but to prove he could still be a man worth looking up to. The training was brutal. Billy had to unlearn everything. No more wild swinging. No more reckless brawling. Tick taught him how to move, how to think, how to survive without rage. For the first time, Billy Hope was fighting with his mind, not just his fists. Day by day, punch by punch, he began to heal. Not just his body, his soul. Meanwhile, Layla was struggling too. In the group home, she refused to talk to him. Felt abandoned. Felt like she lost both parents. Billy visited, even when she stayed silent. He wrote letters, promised her he was changing, and slowly that wall began to crack. She started to see him not as the broken man who lost control, but as a father trying to come back. Then came the call. The new champion, Miguel Escobar, needed an opponent. Billy's old promoter offered him the fight. Big money.
How'd you like to fight for that title? Look, you needed some time off. Now it's time to get you back on top.
big stage, and the chance to take back his title. But this time, the belt didn't matter. Escobar was the same fighter whose team had been involved the night Maureen was killed. For Billy, this was personal. A fight for justice. A fight for closure. A fight for everything. Tick was hesitant. The old Billy would have jumped in head first. But the new Billy? He was ready. Focused. Controlled. Not fighting to hurt Escobar, but to free himself. Fight night came. The arena was packed. Everyone wanted to see if the washed-up ex-champ could survive one more war. The bell rang. Round after round, it was brutal. Escobar landed clean shots. Billy took damage, but stayed smart. He kept his distance, moved his feet, countered clean, and in the final rounds, he did what nobody expected. He outboxed the champion. In the end, it wasn't just fists that won. It was growth, patience, control. Billy Hope, the man who once fought like a wild animal, stood tall as a father, a student, and a man who had climbed out of the darkness. When the final bell rang, Billy didn't raise his arms for the crowd. He went straight to Layla, held her tight. This is Billy Hope. If this story touched your heart, if you believe movies like Southpaw are more than just fights and scripts, but reflections of our own battles, then subscribe to Galaxy Reels.